Long before the invention of the smartphone camera, the ancient Greeks told a story about a handsome wanderer who was a little too obsessed with his own image. After callously rejecting a nymph named Echo, a man named Narcissus caught a glimpse of his own reflection in a river. Mesmerized by what he saw, he fell deeply in love. Unable to tear himself away, he eventually drowned in that exact spot. The physical remnant of this tragic myth was a small plant that sprouted by the water, a bloom we still call the narcissus flower. Today, we casually throw his name around to describe anyone who takes too many selfies or who acts a bit selfish in a meeting. But clinical psychologists reject that diluted definition. They classify narcissism as a specific set of measurable traits that produce severe, real-world consequences. When someone suffers from a condition like depression or anxiety, they are acutely aware of their own internal distress. They know they are in pain.
Narcissism operates on a completely different logic. People with elevated narcissistic traits generally feel powerful, highly justified, and fantastic about themselves. The counterintuitive reality is that the symptoms are actually borne by everyone else. The pain falls on friends, family, and coworkers. To understand how this works, we have to look at the mechanics of this secondhand disease and see exactly how it damages the social fabric around the individual. The clinical baseline for narcissism is an inflated, grandiose self-image. These individuals firmly believe they are smarter, better-looking, and more important than others, which fuels an unyielding expectation of special treatment. This diagram illustrates how everyday narcissism actually splits into two distinct behavioral profiles, grandiose on one side and vulnerable on the other. On the grandiose side, you find the traits most of us recognize: highly extroverted, dominant, pursuing attention and power. That pursuit creates severe collateral damage. Grandiose leaders are prone to risky, unethical decisions, while in personal relationships, it correlates with dishonesty. Meanwhile, the vulnerable side looks completely different. These individuals can be quiet and reserved, harboring a deep, fragile sense of entitlement. Because their self-image is so precarious, they perceive minor slights as major threats. When challenged, they frequently react with intense resentment and sudden defensive aggression. Whether the outward behavior is loud and demanding or quiet and defensive, the mechanical result is identical. The individual deploys a psychological shield to protect their ego, passing the direct costs onto those closest to them. When these traits escalate to the extreme edge of the spectrum, they form a highly disruptive psychiatric condition that affects roughly 1 to 2% of the adult population, narcissistic personality disorder. This diagnosable disorder is characterized by a severe lack of empathy, a chronic need for admiration, and a deeply entrenched grandiose view of oneself. A personality disorder, by definition, completely overtakes a patient's life. A parent or spouse with NPD might stop caring for their family in any meaningful way, exploiting them as a captive audience to extract praise. They aggressively reject constructive feedback, alienating the exact people who try to offer them genuine help. A selfish trait crosses the line into clinical pathology at the exact point where the endless pursuit of ego consumes the individual and systematically destroys their support network. Where do these destructive traits actually come from? Are they wired in from birth, or are they programmed by a person's environment? Twin studies demonstrate a strong genetic link, but the immediate environment acts as a massive catalyst. Parents who place their child on a pedestal, or conversely, parents who are cold and controlling, both frequently produce narcissistic adults. The surrounding culture then acts as an accelerant. Narcissism thrives in societies that heavily reward high individuality and constant self-promotion. In the United States, psychologists have measured a steady rise in narcissistic traits since the 1970s. The communal focus of the previous decade gave way to the self-esteem movement and a surge in overt materialism. Today, social media plays a highly specific role. It doesn't necessarily create the condition from scratch, but it provides the ultimate tool for individuals already seeking status and attention. A clinical narcissist is the product of a perfect storm: a genetic predisposition, misguided parenting, and a culture that eagerly hands them a megaphone. This leaves psychologists with a difficult operational problem. How do you treat a destructive condition when the patient inherently believes they are flawless? Improvement is possible. It requires dedicated psychotherapy that forces honest reflection, paired with the active, deliberate practice of compassion for other people. But the process is exhausting. To get better, the patient has to continuously dismantle the exact psychological armor that keeps them feeling powerful and protected. Healing is attainable, but it demands that the narcissist do the one thing that terrifies them most: hold up a mirror and finally look at their true reflection from a brutally honest, unflattering angle.